Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's session of Daily Current Affairs with Sathya sir. This is me, Satyanarayan from IQ Ideas, and I bring you important current affairs news, daily news updates from a leading newspaper, point out interesting articles which can be read, and of course, great words of vocabulary to improve your knowledge of English. Today is the 25th of August 2025, and without further ado, let's jump into the relatively thin newspaper of today. So the first and biggest headlines is something from the Supreme Court, where it says victims of crime, their heirs can appeal if accused are let off. So the Supreme Court has said victims of crime, their heirs can appeal if accused are let off. That seems to be a pretty interesting thing. So let's delve into it a bit in detail. It says the right can't be limited to the state and the complainant. Okay. After focusing for decades on ensuring fair trial to accused persons and their unfettered right to appeal against conviction, the Supreme Court, in a significant interpretation of criminal law, has conferred similar rights on victims of crime and even their legal heirs to challenge orders acquitting the accused. So, a couple of interesting words. First of all, one is the word unfettered. So, a fetter is a shackle or a binding, handcuffs, or anything which restrains you. So, unfettered is unbound, something which is not restricted. Then we have the word conferred. To give something to someone is to confer something. You are given a title, you are conferred a title. So, for years, of course, the right to appeal against conviction existed, but now the Supreme Court very significantly has said that even the victims of the crimes or their legal heirs can challenge an order of acquittal. So, till now, in the case of acquittal of an accused by trial court or high court, either the state or the complainant had the right to file an appeal before the high court or Supreme Court. The bench last week extended the right to appeal against acquittal of accused to two more categories of persons: those who were injured or suffered losses in the commission of the crime, and legal heirs of victims of crime. So this is fantastic, and let's take a look at the inset where there are quotes. So one, the SC bench has said, and I quote, a person convicted of a crime has the right to prefer an appeal under section 374 of CRPC as a matter of right and not being subjected to any conditions. Similarly, a victim of a crime, whatever be the nature of the crime, must have the right to prefer an appeal. Any curtailing of the legal right to prosecute an appeal on the death of the original appellant by his legal heir would make the proviso to section 372 CRPC, which gives the right to appeal, wholly redundant. And of course, the verdict came in the case of acquittal of three men on charges of murder in 2012 by Uttarakhand High Court. They were convicted in 2004 for the 92 murder and appealed against it in High Court. The Supreme Court allowed the deceased victim's son to prosecute an appeal. So this becomes quite a major piece of information. Law aspirants should definitely be following this, and there seems to be detailed information on this on one of the inside pages. When we come across that, let's see what other information we can get. But seems to be a pretty significant thing. Okay. In other news, the Bihar, the special intensive revision happening in the Bihar electoral rolls ahead of the upcoming polls has been in the news for a pretty long period of time now. So now the Election Commission has said that 98.2% of Bihar voters have submitted documents, right? That seems to be a pretty big thing. Let's put that up on the board. So the Election Commission has said that 98.2% of the Bihar voters have submitted docs. Okay. Only 1.8% of the 7.24 crore voters included in the Bihar's draft electoral roll issued on August 1st are yet to submit documents along with enumeration forms. And this is 8 days ahead of the deadline for filing claims and objections. Great. In other news, of course, with Trump imposing nearly 50% tariffs on India, India hires a second lobbying firm in the US ahead of the 50% tariff kick in. So the Indian Embassy in Washington, D.C. has hired a second lobbying firm led by Brian Lanza, a key member of the 2020 Trump transition team, and former Louisiana Republican Senator David Witter to provide strategic communication services just days before the double whammy 50% tariff on Indian exports to US kicks in. Again, let's put that up on the board. So India, this would be the Indian embassy, hires a second lobbying firm in US ahead of the 50% tariff kicking in. Okay. Other than that, no big news catches my eye, so I quickly move ahead. The city page, the first city page does not seem to have any major updates. There is another city page, and normally I would not take a look at it, but this one is next gen GST reforms fuel renewed optimism. Of course, in the news we have seen reforms coming, the tax slabs changing in the goods and services tax. So the PM's promise of reduced taxes on everyday items is expected to boost consumption, propel MSMEs, small and medium enterprises, I guess. Automobile and textile industries are positioned to be among the big beneficiaries. So there are views from the Secretary of CRIDAI, Gujarat, Chairman of the FADA, Chairman of the Chemicals Committee, former Chairman of PDE, ex-CIL, and President of the Gujarat Traders Federation. So people interested in finance, economy and business should definitely be taking a look at this particular article, although it seems to be on the city page, but should be interesting to read. Well, moving ahead, the next city page definitely does not seem to have anything big like that. Even the state page does not seem to have any important news to be kept in mind as far as entrance exam current affairs preparation goes. The nation page also does not have enough things. The second nation page has a couple of interesting news. One is, of course, the Supreme Court saying teachers get bitten, saying Guru Brahma not enough, have serious concerns over how educators are treated. I've always said this for a long period of time, that being part of the teaching fraternity, teachers, especially those in schools, are not being paid enough, right? So now the Supreme Court has given a statement, pained by the treatment meted out to teachers in the country. The Supreme Court has said mere public recital of Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara is meaningless if those who shape the future generation are paid a pittance. Criticizing the Gujarat government for paying contractual assistant professors 30,000 a month despite them performing work similar to ad hoc and regular associate professors who earn about 1.2 to 1.4 lakh per month. A bench of justices said, we have a serious concern about the way we treat our teachers who educate our future generations, enable them to acquire the necessary qualifications and expertise. But let us see if this is merely an observation or whether there are actual improvements in the emoluments, the salaries, the pays given to our educators. Then we have space related and defense related couple of news. One is the Gaganyaan related news. So what is the news? Well, ISRO completes first integrated airdrop test. What is that? Well, after several delays, the ISRO completed the first integrated airdrop test, a critical exercise to validate the parachute system that will bring astronauts back safely under the Gaganyaan mission from its spaceport in Sriharikota. So this involved dropping a simulated crew module with a mass of around 5 tons from an IAF Chinook helicopter at an altitude of 3.1 kilometers. It's a joint effort of ISRO, the Indian Air Force, the DRDO, the Indian Navy and the Indian Coast Guard. Great. And then, of course, India tests its first integrated air defense weapon system. So India has conducted the maiden test of an indigenous integrated air defense weapon system, which is a combination of 2 surface-to-air missiles and a laser-based anti-drone weapon to tackle incoming aerial threats. Well, any improvement in technology for our defense is always welcome. So quickly we move on to the next, which is my favorite middle page with a lot of articles. On top, we have an article by Rajiv Memani, who is the chairman of EY India and the president of CII. 5 ideas for blockbuster GST reforms. If you recall, on the city page itself, there was quite a big article about GSTs. So here, and I read, rationalization of rates will boost manufacturing and consumption, but bringing low-cost housing under GST can have a big multiplier effect. and a tax-based system based on trust rather than suspicion can give industry wings. So definitely, if you have read the GST article on the City page, this should be followed up. Below that, we have a column by a popular actor, Kamal Hassan, who's also the founder president of Makkal Nidhi Mayam. Centrism isn't nostalgia, it is survival. Actor, politician, and Rajya Sabha member writes, India's national strength is a long standing recognition by our leaders that in a nation of multiple faiths, tongues, and creeds, only politics of harmony can endure. Popular actor, views on unity and diversity or something like that. Go ahead and read it, see if there is any point in that. The left three articles, one is Beyond the Noise. India did the right thing by not signing a bad US trade deal. Tariffs will pinch, but only in the short term. So, a view on the 50% tariff that US President Donald Trump has imposed on India. Next, they shouldn't dare. Yet, botched probes and low conviction rates only help those accused of dowry murders. So, a view on law. And of course, a column by Avijit Ghosh, Meet Jogi Blacks, a dog human half realized love story. Seems to be a humor piece. Next, we have a science based page, how Bond gadgetry became blueprint for modern tech. So, jetpacks, smartwatches, laser weapons. 007's toys tread a fine line between fiction and foreshadowing. Now, the famous character by Ian Fleming, James Bond, has always been a fan favorite, and the stories which have been around for decades have always involved a lot of fancy technology and gadgetry, even in the movies. Now, while all that seemed fiction, many of these things could potentially be, in fact, some of them are actually available, and many of them could be in reality. So in Reel, there's an inset column which talks about the real and real. So in a movie, they had shown a car that turns into a submarine, and in reality, an amphibious concept car, the Rinspeed S Cuba, is there. In Reel, a wristwatch with laser cutter and remote detonator. In reality, smart watches can include GPS and communication but lack weaponization, and so on and so forth. So that is going to be a very interesting read for the tech geeks out there. In space, the Webb telescope finds a hidden Uranus moon. Okay, that's pretty interesting discovery. Moving on this page, let us see if there is something big. Which page number am I on? Okay, so on the front page regarding the Apex Court's decision about the right for the victims and heirs to appeal, I expected a bigger article, but there's a very small line here with an update on that. So if you have read the article, you can just spend a minute or so reading this as well. The next nation page seems to be just updates on things. The business page, nothing jumps out. The global page, okay, there's a report that US immigrant population drops for the first time in decades. Not surprising considering the current ruling government there and its policies. Zelensky calls for talks with Putin. Russia claims its nuclear facility hit. Okay. Israeli strikes target Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen capital. So just all that. In the sports page, with Cheteshwar Pujara retiring from all forms of cricket. Obviously, the page is devoted to his exploits and articles about that, with no other major sporting news. Next, on the last page again we have the sports thing with a column dedicated to the Times of India at US Open. I think just some interest article for tennis fans, and that's pretty much it. So rather thin paper today, but of course the major thing being the Supreme Court's statement about the appeal by the victims of crimes and their heirs. The interesting news regarding ISRO completing its first integrated airdrop test, discovery of a new moon, and updates on all the other news from India and abroad. So this is me, Sathya, calling this an end to today's session. If you have liked this, hit the like button, share it with your friends, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already done so, and do drop your comments below. Wishing you all the very